All right, now we're back in business. So, like I said, Dr. Life in the business of saving lives. And I have life coach, first responder, responding to man-made disasters, unnatural, artificial, man-made disasters. We respond, we search, we rescue, we intervene, and we rehabilitate. So this is an opportunity during a global crisis, man-made, unnatural, artificial disaster, during a financial crisis, unnatural, artificial, man-made disaster, during a health crisis with a virus, global virus that has escalated and escalated, that in times past, even third world countries have been able to control and stop the escalation, unnatural, artificial, man-made disaster. So, in the midst of all of these things, and then you turn to the United States, and the only place in the world where there's racial chaos bubbling over into the streets, where it's mass chaos and mass in the midst of, and then down below the surface, the top 1%, they're in a brand new digital economy called blockchain technology. They've launched and built and transferred wealth to a new global, brand new internet. They did this to you before. They had the internet in the 70s. They did the first transmission in the internet across the internet in the 70s, but didn't give it to you till late 90s, 2000. 30 years later, while they built all of the infrastructure, they built all of the banking, they built all of their money making businesses, and then all of the regular people who tried to get in late. Then it was a dot-com boom and crash. Same thing. So while they had the regular people going on, had the regular people sitting home, losing jobs, trying to train you to receive a handout, look to the governments of the world to save you. We the first responders. And these Holywood Grail vintage games are the answer, because they're all supernatural. If the people in your nation, in your country, love the arrangement and love the situation that you're in with the Western European powers, DC, Britain/London, Paris, the Vatican. If your nation and your country includes the United Nations and the European Union, those six, if you and all of your people and all your children are dying to be accepted into the European Union and the United Nations, and you're looking for the European Union and the United Nations to rescue you and to tell you how to operate your schools and to tell you how to run your budgets, and you're looking to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in order to develop your nations and all of that. These games are not for you. That's not natural. If you still want to tell your children, you still want to allow your children and your nation to look to the lying Western standard and model of beauty that says you have your daughters and your women, in order to look pretty, you got to be a Barbie doll and die of anorexia, die of bulimia. You got to carve your face up like a slab of meat to widen your eyes, to inject collagen in your lips, and to chop up your nose and bleach your skin. If that is the mindset of your nation, then you sit back. This is not for you. Wait for the next pandemic numbers. Wait for the next crisis. Wait for the next. And for all of y'all, what you're going to get from Europe is the same thing you got from Europe that got your nation to look to them for everything. Whether your nation is China, opium wars, they destroyed they took your people from having their own heritage and customs, destroyed your people. China, Japan, Korea used to be people in the East who had honor. Before our people in the East looked to the West for their identity of everything, was there beauty in the East before you started looking West? Absolutely. Were there beautiful women in the East before you started looking to the West, to London and the Vatican in Italy? Absolutely. That's called supernatural. Did the men care about their countrymen and their countrywomen and their children before a communist regime, before Great Britain brought understand, the reason you're communist is because of Britain. The unnatural arrangement that you have been taught and programmed was because your people lost a war. Because Britain wanted what you had and they didn't. Your resources, your people, your women. And now you have men in the East who are puppets for Britain. Communists, no honor. They'll let Britain tell y'all you're subhuman. And so we need to slow down your population rate, China. You need to implement a one-child policy in the communism that the British gave you. Chairman Mao was taught. Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il and Kim Junkie Junk were taught communism. In Western, Karl Marx, Western philosophy, schools of thought. Then the British, with the blessing of the Pope. Don't ever leave the Pope out. Nothing that London does to the world, it's all with the explicit orders of the Pope. The Holywood Grails, vintage games, is a call to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people around the world who want to be supernatural and who want to compete for your root, heritage, and customs. We're giving them back to you. The best runners, supernaturally, not in Western standards, not by Western standards that in order for you to make a good showing, you're going to find a way to fake and put on the fake European face of fairness, all while you cheat and do performance enhancing drugs. So when you get on the world stage, you can increase your, that's fake. In the USA, in this superpower that we built through blood, sweat, dominion, sovereignty. My family ain't come over here as slaves. Our family ain't coming to the East as slaves. Our family has touched every continent of this globe. I could trace the roots of my family all the way back to the creation in the garden, and every last one of y'all ancestors on y'all continent can be traced. The root, the original root, on each and every continent, back through the Tower of Babel, back through the flood, back through Enoch walking with God, back through Adam and Eve in the garden, back to let there be light. Every single continent we can trace the root, heritage, and customs of the original people who had an original tongue on every continent on the globe. And there was never a European present. Never. So for you to look to the European now, for you to look to the European now, the reason that they always capitalize in these situations because they have monopolized the unnatural. When you flip the script on the unnatural and you get back to supernatural, the cash will flow and the vagabond will wander away, looking for some waste. What this is about is no more, just say no more. Just say no more waste. We're going to open the games like this.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I've worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my family by my side. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and who gave that right to me. I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA. There's a pride in every American heart, and it's time to make a change. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and who gave that right to me. I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and who gave that right to me. I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Thank you. Happy 4th of July. I hope you enjoy the fireworks.
We're going to lead by example, y'all. We are going to lead by example. So during these games, during the 2020 Holywood Grill Vintage Games, every single game has a logo. And we just showed you the logo. There's nothing more supernatural than the Holywood Grill lowlife. The Holywood Grill lowlife. We're going to introduce you to this. The Statue of Liberty does not represent the USA. The Statue of Liberty has no talents. Statue of Liberty has no resources. That queen that you just saw standing on the stage, that is the resource. And when you let other outsiders give you their definition of what they want you to believe is valuable in your lands, and then when you latch on to a fake version and narrative of what's valuable in your lands, then they're able to come in and steal the thing that has true value, which is what they've done to every nation on the globe. And we're just showing you here in the United States of America what dominion looks like, what sovereignty looks like. Nobody across no waters can claim that they got crowns and they could come across some waters and then set up colonies and set up treaties and set up laws. Yo, just prove it. We're going to show y'all in every nation under the globe. In every nation under the globe. How to force the world to be pro whatever your nation is. Pro, in this case, pro-USA. The Holywood Grail lowwife that you just saw on the screen. Is the true icon of the resource. And I'll give you an example. Let's do hip hop. So take the Holywood Grail lowwife. One Love and hip hop. Last Eden, Lioness is Queen of Queens. The Last Eden, Lioness is Queen of Queens. The Holywood Grail, lowwife. I'll define what a lowwife is all throughout the game. You got to have a beginning. You got to control who you are in the beginning, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the ending. Start to finish. Just like you get on the starting blocks. You can't get disqualified in the dark starting blocks in a 100-meter dash. You got to start off strong and you have to finish strong. The Holywood Grail lowwife is the starting blocks. We've defined. We've set the bar and set the standard. We've established that our queens is royal, just with the title. Holywood Grail means the highest. Holywood Grail vintage means we got the recipe for the most valuable vintage bottle coming from the most valuable fruitful grapes on the planet. Holywood Grail vintage lowwife. One Love in hip hop. Meaning, can't nobody else duplicate this recipe. You can come and pay the proper value and price for it and honor paying our queens what they worth to even come in their presence is what's called honor. When you come across the season, then you say, yo, there's beauty, there's value, and I'm just going to take it. I'm going to enslave it. That's unnatural. That's a violation. That's the opposite of Holywood Grail. And that's all of your European wines. That's all of your Napa Valley US wines. That's all of your wines coming out of South Africa. Fruit of the poisonous tree. It's all fruit of the poisonous tree. We letting y'all know there's Holywood Grail. That's why they're here. They just taught y'all a narrative called Lost Cause narrative. And then they just created media outlets to broadcast the lie. See, we have been invested in making sure that we always produce the Hollywood Grail vintage. It takes so much hands-on to continue to replenish this vintage, these queens, these children, these sons, these daughters, these homes. It takes so much hands-on investment that prior to now, our focus has not been media in telling a story because we're living out a day-to-day supernatural reality. But so many of our people are being deceived, and so many of our people around the world are looking to this unnatural that it's easy for us to step down onto the world stage with a new digital economy that they created, new digital internet that's faster and more connected. And now when we step onto the stage and we build our media, Hollywood studios, on the infrastructure that they've created, and they hope that 30 years down the line, y'all gonna be just catching on. We building side by side with them. And in all of the places where they have been unnatural, in movies, in their television, in their recreation, in their education, we're simply going to put the all supernatural reality that we have been doing for thousands of years. We're going to put the blueprint. We're going to finally put the blueprint. So every nation, kindred, tongue, and people around the world can go right back to your original heritage and your original customs of honor. And it starts with the queen. It starts with your queens not looking to the European lie. If your daughters, if your wives, if your men are promoting the European Barbie doll standard of beauty, they unnatural and dishonorable. But here in the USA, there's only one love. It's in hip hop. And the Hollywood Grail lowwife, last Eden, lioness, is queen of queens here in the USA. And you just looked at it. And all of them are that. Everything else, all of these other women that y'all see, they done came from your dishonorable countries. They're anti-USA, and we sending them back. We're sending them back to you. We're sending them back to where they came from. So when y'all get y'all heritage and customs back in order, take them through the rehabilitation process too. We don't want them here. They not welcome. If you anti-USA, anybody that's anti-USA, anti-USA is not having the one love in hip hop. When you come here with the Europeans' definition of love, you anti-USA. To be pro-USA, you got to be anti-London, anti-Germany. To be pro-USA, you got to be anti-Rome, anti the Vatican. To be pro-USA, you got to be anti-European Union. You can't be both. And y'all need to learn this. Because you put the British and the German and the French and the European Union on a pedestal. And you want to be like them. And because you have lost value in your own customs and your own heritage, and you look to them, then when they come into your borders and they come on their so-called vacations, they coming and they doing sex tourism. The European comes to third world tourist destinations around the world, and they're engaging in sex tourism with minors, sex tourism with your daughters and your wives, the same individuals that have depressed your economy, your same colonizer that has you living in favelas. Then they gonna fly in and stay at the best hotels. They're gonna come down to your beaches. This is what happens when you have no honor. This is what happens when your men of your nation have sold you out and have no honor and they have no. Listen, in the United States of America, to be pro-US, you have to honor our queens. You have to honor our marriages. You have to honor our children. You have to honor our heritage and our customs. And you cannot live a lie. There is a price to pay because the lioness has a lion that guards the borders. I told you, we the original sons of Eden. We the original sons of Eden. And that land ain't called Africa. It wasn't never called Africa. Some Germans called it Africa in 1883. The world don't even know what our people are called. Our people have a native tongue, always have. They just chose to identify the tongues of the people who are willing to do treaties and lay down their heritage and customs and look to the West. See that? See that prostitute? This is a prostitute, literally. This is the prostitute that the French wanted to give us instead of her.
My side, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today.
And because we are pro-USA, we reject what the French and the British, we reject their dreams for this land. Your dream cannot supersede the dream of our queen. The French's dream for the US don't matter. That's why that prostitute statue is not on our land. In France, the Eiffel Tower is on their land. The Eiffel Tower is on the actual land in Paris. That prostitute is not on our land. It's out in the ocean. Might as well be down at the depths of the sea. And this is why France, and this is why London, and this is why the Vatican tried to replace your queens. Every last one of y'all have been given directives about your reproduction of your queens. Every last one of y'all. Because they can't reproduce. And this is what they have substituted your queens and your princes and your princesses with. What you do? This is what they tried to switch your queens with. controlling none of this narrative. The European woman has never had a say in nothing. When you go and look at Egypt, Egypt was not like that. They came and studied in Egypt. Why don't y'all ask the European male that? They came and studied in Egypt. They came and they took Apollo from Egypt. Why they ain't take the laws that women could control their own property, that women had their own birthright? Why they ain't take that? Why they ain't get that to y'all? And the West is supposed to be enlightened? Where your women and your children are chattel slaves? Huh? The West is amateur. The rest is infant ignorance. And just because y'all don't know nothing about it, and y'all believe the lies that these European males who went down in Egypt and studied how Egypt was great. Egypt is not European, listen, Egypt is straight out of the son of Ham. You can have your lies in Christianity about God cursed Ham. The West was built on, I'm going to show it to you. It's the last thing I'm going to show y'all. Yeah, these games are about $40 billion. We got $40 billion that we can cut up between every single one of y'all that want to come and play. They spent $40 billion 4 years ago in Rio. And they said in 2020, they're not doing the Olympic Games. So it's nothing stopping us from doing Holywood games and repairing the damage that Europe, they have fumbled. They have fumbled and wasted all of these resources, all of these years. And now we about to show y'all. But they talk about the greatness of Plato and Socrates. Plato and Socrates studied in Egypt. Plato and Socrates studied in Egypt. Yo, why women of the West, women of the West? Why you gotta fight for? Women's liberation? Why is it a women's liberation movement in the West? Why do you have to be liberated? Our queens have never been subjugated. They just tried to erase our history from the world. Y'all don't know that they came down and they studied and they picked and choose. And then they burned the libraries in Egypt down so that the world could not come back and find. The only reason we know it is because it's our heritage. There's something called the oral customs of a people. You can't burn the oral customs of the people. That's what One Love and hip hop is about. The oral custom, the oral heritage is handed down in songs of victory, rain dances. When we secure our borders in every generation, when our ancestors, when our kings and queens, not only did our queens obtain their own property and their own rights, they were equals in battle. Just like the lioness is equal in the hunt. The European male came down and made them the priest of the myths, the religious myths of Egypt. That's what they came and took. The sciences. And when they took it and they made you chattel slaves, it meant that only they could practice the sciences. Only they could be the priest. Only the European male, this unnatural world was created by Plato and Socrates. And y'all was taught to look at them as geniuses. They the most ignorant people ever. And the only reason why the European woman goes with them now is because all the way up until Franklin Delano Roosevelt, it wasn't until Franklin Delano Roosevelt when his wife was being treated the same way. Eleanor Roosevelt in the US, when they created the United Nations, it took, listen, the European woman has been destroyed. The European children have been destroyed since Plato and Socrates up until the United Nations and Eleanor Roosevelt started the women's liberation movement with her female lover, the Declaration of Human Rights. That don't include us. That don't include our women, our children. We wasn't the ones being oppressed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So they ain't include you in a Declaration of Human Rights. But the male, because they had just destroyed European men in World War I and World War II and the Civil War and the Spanish-American War and all of this. So now they need women. Now they need women because they know in order to keep their charade going, they need some people to vote. And for the first time, the European woman had their opportunity to get free after the Civil War, after World War II. The European male had to come to them and ask them to go to work in factories, and they did it. The European male had to ask them to go into the workforce, and they did it. And that was the European woman's time to set her child free, set herself free. And because they had been selling the bigotry of the Civil War, instead of being supernatural, they attached themselves to their unnatural European male and went to the United Nations and bound themselves in oaths as well. Bound themselves just like the men in the United Nations. Now, the European woman is on the hook just like the European male. And then they gave you women like Margaret Sanger, eugenics. They said if blood is going to be on our hands, blood going to be on your hands too. So now you got all these European women pushing a eugenics movement to sterilize and exterminate. Y'all talk about pro-life. Pro-life? It is a Christian, right-wing, evangelical, Protestant, U.S. male and female that created the eugenics movement and gave it to Adolf Hitler and still practice it today. The evangelical Christian European male, European woman created eugenics or Planned Parenthood. I don't care if y'all faking and y'all done handed it off to the Democrats and now y'all make them the fall guy and the patsy for a narrative and for blood that y'all got on y'all hands. Listen, we ain't buying it. All of y'all Christian, right-wing, fundamental, y'all are the reason why the world aborts babies. Christian, right-wing evangelicals, Margaret Sanger. Listen, these are all of the Southern Democrats. First of all, Southern Democrats are your Confederate Christian slave owners. Then after they assassinated Abraham Lincoln, who they hated, they switched parties and they joined the Republican racists and plantation owners, and they created one party of eugenics, pro-slavery, colonialism, everything, pro the lie that Ham was cursed, so all people are cursed. So in the 1830s, they had something called the Gilded Age, where they taught Darwin's theory of evolution. This is where these Christian, right-wing, Protestant, evangelical Christians, they not Catholics, Protestant, right-wing, evangelical Christians, after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, said we no longer are going to be Democrats. Now we're going to change that party to a liberal to get the blood off conservative hands. Listen, both the North and the South were run by conservatives, right-wing, evangelical, Protestant Christians based off of the Bible, the King James Bible. All slavery, all colonialism, all of the death, all of the bloodshed, all of the rape, all of the bigotry, all of the everything. The human zoos of the North, were done by Protestant, right-wing, evangelical Christians. Southern Democrats ran the plantations of the South. Right-wing, evangelical, Protestant Christians. Blood everywhere. And because there was no liberal in the United States of America, there is no liberal in the United States of America. They created the liberal from the blackamoor that helped them build. Washington, D.C. was built by a blackamoor. The blackamoors are Shriners, they Muslims. The blackamoors, they Muslims. Allah is the God of their forefathers, so they say. The Pope is the God of their forefathers. Every Muslim leader honors their forefathers and the Pope. Every communist leader honors their revolutionary leaders and the Pope. So who's their father? The Pope. Always has been. Show me one Islamic leader, the highest Islamic leader. I am talking about who's in a mosque or whatever. Show me the highest Islamic leader, and I'll show you somebody who kisses the feet in the ring of the Pope. So who's their father? Who's Allah to them? That's liberalism. The blackamoor came, Benjamin Banneker built Washington, D.C. Not a European, Benjamin Banneker built, laid the schematics, built the structures, laid it Freemasonically. Freemasonically, that's the blackamoor, Shriners. He laid Washington, D.C., the Mall of Washington, the Washington Monument. He laid, the Washington Monument is a Freemasonic emblem. The Capitol is a Freemasonic emblem. You can't build a Capitol building without a Freemason to a Shriner. That's why they, the Greco-Romans, went into Egypt to learn their sciences, Freemasonic science, after they assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Then the Southern Democrats, these are the Protestant Christians, the right-wing evangelical, they like, listen, people got access to the word of God here, so we can't be on both sides of this. We can't have the right-wing evangelical up north and the right-wing evangelical down south fighting against each other still. We got to join forces now that Abraham Lincoln is out of the way, and then we gonna let these Democrats, these blackamoors, same people getting up on stage in the 1820s. You got European painting their face black, and then you got blackamoors, the Benjamin Banneker's, who built Washington, D.C., who got up on stage with them and created the stereotypical lies that they sold to the world. This is why you think what you think about my sons, my daughters, my wife. But that's why you're going to lose. That's why you've been losing, because they've been telling you a lie all this time. And then all of this time, our ancestors, since that time, been being rescued by our ancestors that was here before the slave ships came. See, they told you a lie that all people of color was brought here on slaves. But listen, all throughout the history books, the Indian and the European indentured slaves that they brought from England and Europe on slave ships, yes, knew that they could run down to what the Spanish called Spanish Florida. It wasn't Spanish Florida. How's it Spanish Florida? Spain ain't captured none of that. They just called that land that they didn't have the strength to capture. They just called it Spanish Florida. So in the books, you would think that it was a Spanish colony. Why do you think they only had 13? They only had control of the Northeast, and the smallest states in the USA are all of the 13 states: Rhode Island, Maine, Delaware. These are the smallest states. They didn't control none of the land of the United States of America. 13 colonies, the 13 smallest patches of land, that Rhode Island, Maine, Connecticut, Maryland. You serious? Virginia? Do you know how small the 13 little, listen, they barely landed boats on the land. And they told hundreds of years of history from little 13. They bottled in the smallest little patch of land on the thing, and they got the Spanish over there talking about, yeah, we control Spanish Florida. You know how big Spanish Florida was? Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, New Orleans, Texas. Do you know how big Spanish Florida was? They never claimed none of those in their 13 colonies because they couldn't come outside the boundaries of those 13. Listen, it was a death sentence. And we ain't talking about no Indians. Obviously, the Indians, they had nothing, couldn't do nothing with the European. They ended up on reservations. We didn't. We still here. So y'all can't have it both ways. Y'all gotta make them prove the lies that they told. And what I'm about to show you right here It puts a death nail in every lie that the European had ever told about the Bible. This is the death nail. This is the death nail in Christianity. This is the death nail in Islam. This is the death nail in Mormonism. This is the death nail in the apocryphal gospels, the book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scroll. This is the death nail.
Inside Washington's Museum of the Bible, a single volume that is like no other. The so-called Slave Bible, remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
So about 90% of the Old Testament's been removed and about 50% of the New Testament's been removed. To put it another way, a normal King James Version has 1,189 chapters in it. The Slave Bible has only 232.
Missing are chapters and verses that might have encouraged uprisings. Book of Exodus, redacted. No story of Moses demanding Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Gone is Galatians, and the verse, "There is neither bond nor free, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." And no Jeremiah, "Woe unto him that useth his neighbor's service without wages."
What they've left in are verses such as Ephesians 6:5, which is the famous verse, "Slaves, be obedient to your master."
Looking at this Bible, it's hard to tell that anything's been taken out of it.
That's correct. I mean, it looks like a normal book. For many enslaved Africans, this would have been the first time they were exposed to the Bible.
A Bible selectively edited to instill obedience, using religion to underpin the horror of slavery. When people encounter this exhibit, what lasting impression do you want them to leave with?
But we want to pass the message on that may this never happen again. The Bible itself is a whole book. It's not one that you get to carve up and use this piece or that piece.
The Slave Bible designed to repress rebellion, but it didn't work. Enslaved people in the Caribbean constantly fought against slavery until emancipation.
I think it's very relevant to understand our history, not just American history, but our African American history, our roots and how we got to this point.
A dark chapter in the history of the good book. Jeff Bennett, NBC News, Washington.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here.
First of all, we don't have roots. It's not multiple places where we came from. There's only one root. Second of all, we're not African Americans. There's no such landmass called Africa. We're not Black. All of the names that the Creator identified his original root people as, and it's not the Hebrews either. The Hebrews sold their soul to the Romans. We serve no God but Caesar, and that's why the Western world uses people of color to try and recruit under the Blackness of the Hebrews. Because the Hebrews sold their soul to Satan and Caesar when they said, "Give us Barabbas and you kill the Messiah." They sold their soul to Satan and Caesar and said, "We serve no God but Caesar. Let his blood be on us and our children." The Hebrew blood being acceptable as an entrance, as the chosen people of God, died with that vow and oath to Satan and Caesar, the same way that Cain, when he killed his brother, the Most High God said, the blood of your brother cries from the ground. Cursed are you, Cain. The Hebrews killed the Messiah, the King of Kings, who was greater than Abel. And then the people, under the same spirit of Caesar, who said, we serve you, Caesar, and not the Messiah. This is the word for word text. We serve no God but Caesar. The Hebrews said Caesar is their God. The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost stopped being the Hebrew God. And the reason that they're wailing at the Wailing Wall is because Caesar and his children cannot figure out how to unlock the blessings after stealing the making a fake name of JEWS. They cannot figure out how to be fruitful. They magic spells don't work. That's why they're wailing at the wall. Those are Caesar's children. The Hebrews ended with that statement. And when that blood went into the ground, this is why he said, it is finished. You have signed, sealed the deal. So when in the future, when it talks about Abraham's seed, it's talking about all of Abraham's seed who properly chose to be in the Messiah prior to them putting the death nail in their coffin. And they still using people who faking like they Hebrews. Listen, it's no more Hebrew. And in the text that they took out of the word of God, it says there's no more Hebrew, there's no more Gentile, there's no more nothing. When he said it is finished, it was finished. He said you can't add to this or take away nothing from this. This 2,000 years after was supposed to get the rest of the world to see, to look back at those events and judge between Caesar and them Hebrews and the creator of heaven and earth. And the whole world was supposed to look back and say, yo, I see who the Romans are. I see who the Greeks are. I see who the Hebrews are. And then I see who the creator is, who they killed. I see his life. I see what he did. To talk about a church and a move. Listen, he never authorized creating churches or spiritual entities. Why would he need to create a spiritual entity after he already said it's finished? What he revealed and how he rebuked humanity for 6,000 years from Adam until the cross. He said there is enough for you to make your decision. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to send Paul to rebuke those who killed me and crucified me. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to appear to John the Revelator on the Isle of Patmos, one who walked with me for the 3 years on earth. And I'm going to reveal to him exactly how I'm going to judge all of the people who don't get it right. I'm not creating no Christian churches. I'm not sending no new prophet named Muhammad, named Noble Drew Ali. I'm not sending no new prophet named Joseph Smith to the Mormons. I'm not sending no new bodies of worship. I'm not telling you to join no churches. Listen, if I ain't tell Job or Noah to join a church, why would I tell somebody else to join a church if I'm the same? If I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever, if I am the beginning and the ending, this is what the Romans and the Hebrews who killed the Messiah taught y'all after the Messiah. And he warned you, you can't put your new wine in my old wineskins. Church going is new wine. your pagan worship is new wine. So all of y'all pagans is just as dead to the king as all of these Christians. All of these, listen, Islam is a new form of Zoroastrianism. And the only reason they changed the name of Islam from what the Persians was doing under the same name of the same God, Allah, is because it was on record in the Bible that they took out. So they took out the passages and they changed the name so that they could keep worshiping Allah and Zoroastrianism under a new name. And so when they take the pages out and when people get access to the original pages, they're going to see a history of Zoroastrianism in Persia. And they, listen, Islam wasn't there. So when we say, yo, there was a prophet named Muhammad and he started a religion, they like, yo, it sounds plausible. Yo, there was prophets before in the Bible, but yo, you forgot the passage where he said it's finished. It's finished. The Greco-Roman world will never be successful and fruitful because Cain could not be fruitful because Cain killed Abel. And the Greco-Roman world and the Hebrews killed the Messiah. How could it be fruitful? How could they be wisdom and they killed the greatest being heaven ever gave you? God cursed Cain for killing his brother, and his brother wasn't the Messiah. Y'all think that wisdom is going to be handed down to earth, and because they told you he wasn't the Messiah. Oh, I forgot. They told you he just a prophet. Oh. But how could the Hebrews be a choice of the chosen people when he rebuked the Hebrews for killing all of his prophets? How are you allowing the blackamoor pagan to sell you that your identity in the Hebrew when he rebuked the Hebrew for killing all of his prophets? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Huh? Even when they demote the Messiah to prophet, he already rebuked every single deception that they was going to hand you. And you still don't see that shedding that blood on the cross put the nail in the coffin for every pagan and every Hebrew and every Gentile. And if they did not come and have the same transformation that the 12 Hebrews that he called out of being Hebrews, he did not create a Christian church for his disciples to join. He called them to stop being blind, ignorant Hebrews who were so in tune with paganism that they would kill the Messiah. He knew that they was going to kill him. And he knew that only the people who stopped being Hebrews and walked the same walk that Enoch walked with him, all he did was offer them not a new thing, but the everlasting thing. Come walk with me day by day. He allowed 12 people to do with him the same thing that Enoch did with him for 365 years. Come walk with me. That ain't Christianity. He didn't take them, he didn't create a new thing, a body of believers. No, he called them out of the paganism of being a Hebrew, and he elevated and upgraded. And the word of God, what God calls them the sons of God. And in Luke chapter 3, he explains that from the time I was born all the way back to Adam, the people who walk with me are the sons and daughter of God. and they gave y'all this slave Bible. Then when the slave Bible didn't work, they gave y'all the apocryphal gospels with the book of Enoch that tells you that the sons of God are fallen angels. And then that didn't work. And then King James gave you his third version, the King James Version. And then out of the King James Version, instead of revising the Bible, they just said, we're going to revise the doctrines found in the King James Version, and we're going to give you the Willie Lynch theory. And what we tried to do with the slave Bible, we're going to give you back give you back most of the passages, and then we're going to change the doctrine on y'all. So we're going to give y'all Genesis chapter 10, but then we're going to come back, and even though Genesis 10 says one thing, we're going to teach y'all something different. This is Christianity. It's documented. They got a museum that got the original Bible, and they couldn't even sell that to the Europeans. Why? Because y'all think and y'all believe that the only people out here were the Christians, were the Catholics. God said, I will always have a remnant that will make sure that my people be not deceived. God is not mocked. So there's always a separate group that has, in every age, when the fullness of time has come. So when Martin Luther started challenging the Vatican in 1517, immediately in Europe, individuals started writing the Bible in the native tongues of all of the 7 European nations. And it is from the compilation of those writings that King James confiscated and made his 3 versions of the Bible. King James never wrote nothing. When God started exposing the Roman Catholic Church, there was a group of people called the Waldenses. There was another group of people called the Huguenots. The Huguenots are important because the Huguenots are in France. And they would be the ones to end the Roman Catholic Church in 1798. The Waldenses led the movement of writing, listen, for hundreds of years. They lived in the mountains of Italy and all over Europe. Separate. With the words, with the information that Paul, and listen, Paul tells you he went into Spain and Asia Minor, Turkey, Spain. Paul traveled to Italy. And these same people in Italy and in Spain, the Waldenses, took that word from the Apostle Paul, went and lived in mountains separate from the Roman Catholic liars and preserved. And so then when it was time for God to bring down that apostate lie, he had somebody from within, a monk, a high-ranking monk that was high up in the church, to see inside the Catholic Church exactly what the Waldenses have been preserving in the wilderness. And as the church was trying to persecute and kill all of the Waldenses to keep the secret from getting out, and as they tried to persecute the Huguenots to keep the secret from getting out, Martin Luther from inside went to the heart of Germany and said the Waldenses are right, the Huguenots are right, the Roman Catholic Church and this Christian lie is the beast system. Here are 95 ways in 1517 that the Roman Catholic Christian Church is the beast system. 95. So now they got the Waldenses over here in Italy and in the mountains over here, and they got the Huguenots over here in France, and now they got to come and try and deal with Martin Luther too. They fighting 3 wars on 3 different fronts in Europe. And they trying to come to the United States of America. Why? Because Europe is about to crumble. Rome was about to crumble again. Rome was about to collapse. The lie was up. And when the Waldenses and the Huguenots, and when Martin Luther, and listen, when Martin Luther started doing it, a dude popped up in Switzerland, started doing the same thing, writing it. Listen, the Roman Catholic Church, everybody spoke, they changed their languages from Latin to Spanish, German, French, Dutch. Nobody spoke Latin, but they kept preaching in Latin. The Roman Catholic Church wrote all of their Bibles in Latin, all their spiritual books in Latin. It's code. When y'all try and talk about, they use the Bible to enslave people. No. Getting access to the word of God is what freed the world from the lie that they told from Calvary to 1517. And understand, the Quran and all of these other books are in between that. The book of the Dead Sea Scrolls and all of that. The Kabbalah of Scientology and the Kabbalah and the Torah of the unholy land right now. All of these books. But the Bible is the book that they use to enslave people. But the Quran ain't. But the Book of Mormon is not the book that they use to enslave people. But the Bible is. The Jehovah's Witness Bible is not a book that they use to enslave. I got news for you. This slave book right here, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, every last one, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Judas, all of them books are written by listen, when King James started confiscating the manuscripts, the people who were writing what Paul gave them, all they did was took the same letters that Paul, remember, the Apostle Paul was the apostle to Europe. You have a direct connection of individuals that Apostle Paul himself, who Jesus Christ, the Messiah, after they killed him, came and showed up on Damascus. Do you know where Damascus is? It is in Syria. Donald Trump and them bombed Syria. They have been trying to erase the treasure trove. Turkey ain't nothing. Constantinople ain't nothing. Do you know where Turkey and Constantinople is? Do you know where Syria is? That is the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire The Assyrian Empire is the treasure trove that carried off the 10 tribes of Israel. That is the place where all of the prophets, the real prophets' writings, when you enslave a people, just like in Babylon, Babylon enslaved Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys, right? And it says they brought all of the vessels, everything from the temple to Babylon. In the temple, they keep the scrolls. Not only did they bring the vessels, they brought the scrolls with them. Assyria did the same thing when they carried off the 10 tribes of Israel. Then God sent, that's why God sent Jonah to Assyria, to Nineveh. He like, you got my people, you enslaved my people, you got my scrolls, you got my prophets, and now I'm going to come and I'm going to set y'all free. And so when Assyria began to worship God, the 10 tribes of Israel began to worship God again, because the Assyrians were their captors, and their Assyrians turned to God, and under God's law, you must free the slave after every 7 years. So then, when the children of Israel get their freedom through the Assyrian nation, that's why the Hebrew Israelites telling our people that we all are, and the British focusing on Judah. Do you know that the British created the word Jews out of Judah and Jupiter? And the British are telling y'all the same thing that the Hebrew Israelites are telling y'all. You got to go through us to get to the kingdom. You got to be the Hebrew Israelites saying you got to be Hebrews. The British saying you got to be German Caesar, Jews. And all of that's a lie. That's why they gave y'all this book, the slave book. So you never, this book is the book that all of them wrote all of their books off of. It teaches a slave mentality. The Buddhists have been taught from this book. That's why the British taught the Buddhists. Listen, the Buddhists are just Indian British. British, the British taught the Buddhists. Oh, give up everything of value in this lifestyle, in this life. Give up everything of value and seek oneness with the ever nothingness, so that we can come into your lands and take all of the gold of India. And so that the 1 billion+ people of India will accept caste systems of poverty and believe that that's what you're supposed. Listen, all we're supposed to look for is reincarnation. We're supposed to look to live in another life, so that the British won't have to, who not strong enough to come in and take. We had to take this slave Bible that King James wrote in 1611. We need to take this slave Bible to India and teach them to worship Shiva and Kali and Brahma and not have no attachment with the world, so that then we can make our capital cities in India and have no competition. It's called a monopoly. Yeah, they use the Bible. They didn't use the Bible. They didn't use the word that God gave his apostles. They used a book created by King James, who was an English, British, and Scottish pagan, European Satan worshiper, with Queen Elizabeth, Henry Tudor. The English crown has always been subservient to the Roman Catholic Church, who has always been. And King James did his dastardly deed 100 years after all of Europe knew that the Roman Catholic Church was the beast. So how diabolical is he? 1517, individuals died, was burned at the stake, writing what Paul gave the world. And then King James, after the Roman Catholic Church killed all of them, burnt all of their writings, he then took a collection of the writings and 100 years later tried to give the European people. But what he didn't know was so many people had gotten access to those writings before they were burned. So many people had learned in their own native tongue exactly what it said, that when he brought the slave Bible to them, they knew it was a lie. And everybody rejected it. This is why he had to create 3 different versions. The truth was already out there. So if the truth is out there, then God's true people, the Christian churches that you know today, Methodists and Baptists and all of that, the denominations came out of King James and his arrangement with Queen Elizabeth and the Roman Catholic Church. After all of that damage was done, they worked with the Jesuit order, the Society of Jesus, the Society of Fake Jesus. This is the same Jesus of Kanye. The Jesuit order is the Jesus that walks with Kanye. And they were looking for, King James was the Kanye of their day. King James was the Kanye that the Society of Jesus, the Roman Catholic army that killed all of those who wrote the word of God in the native tongue. They killed them. They destroyed the books. This is how these Europeans have a museum with the book still in it. They are the author of the book. The British are the author of the book. Of course, they got a copy. They wrote it. So all of the denominations that was taught in universities and all of that, when they had the King James Version in this document, this is how they taught y'all in your university. This is how they taught y'all in your theological seminaries. All of you Christian, if you aren't doing what the Waldenses did, you're not everlasting gospel. The Waldenses and the Huguenots rebuke every denomination after the death of Christ. The Waldenses of Europe, it's no excuse for Europeans. It's no excuse for African Americans, because they lived under the lie, the same lie that you live under. They lived under the same Roman Catholic pagan deception that you live under. The same information that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was handed, the Waldenses preserved. So with the Seventh-day Adventist Church being in lockstep with the Roman Catholic pagan doctrines of the day, the Waldenses and the Huguenots rebuke every denomination after. And the time of trouble that's coming, only the people who stand like the Waldenses, only the people who stand up just like Martin Luther and say, all of these Protestant Christian, listen, this is what the time of trouble is. The whole world is going to have to stand against Islam, Mormonism, Buddhism, all of these pagan offshoots of the Roman Catholic Church, and everybody is going to have to do like the Waldenses. The passages of scripture that King James had to give you back. Understand, it's enough in the King James Version Bible. It's enough in there because the truth made him revise it and keep adding the bare minimum that you needed to have the same stance that the Waldenses had. You have more than enough, even in the King James Version Bible that you have. They had less than what you have. And even after that rebuke, England and Scotland and France and Germany had an opportunity to do like the Waldenses. This is why the European kingdom is crumbling to this day. This is why they are destined and judged to be vagabonds, because the blood that they have shed in repressing this word and entering back into colonialism, slavery, is the final violation. They killed the Messiah. Then Paul was sent to Europe specifically to be the prophet, to be the apostle to the Gentiles, the Europeans. They killed Paul. The Waldenses, the Huguenots, they destroyed the word, and then they rewrote history and did colonialism and slavery all over the world. 3 strikes, you're out. This testifies that they still took what the Waldenses and the Huguenots gave them and created an Olympic Games where they sacrifice people to the gods Apollo. This is what the Olympic Games is. They're telling you, still in 2020, we still worship Apollo. After Paul, after the Messiah who we crucified came to Paul, made Paul the apostle to us. We killed him too, then took his writings and did this to it. I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord, 1712, 1712, on the James River in the U.S. I shall thank the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia. Virgin Mary is what Virginia is named after. So these Protestants are here and they still telling you we serve the Catholic Church. Virginia is named after the Virgin Mary. Maryland is named after the Virgin Mary. Puritans were masquerading as evangelical Protestant Christians when they weren't protesting Rome at all. If they were protesting Rome, why would they venerate the Virgin? Only Catholics venerate the Virgin. Because any follower of the King of Kings and the Messiah knows that the Virgin Mary in Catholicism is Ishtar, is the Statue of Liberty, is Apollo, it is Nike, it is Columbia. Every person except pagans on the James River, King James, honoring the Virgin, and they Christians. aborting babies. You're not pro-life. You've never been pro-life. A right-wing evangelical Christian cannot, you can never. This is why politics is fake. This is why Washington, D.C. is fake. This is why their version of the U.S. is fake. I'm letting you know from the only perspective that is true, which is the everlasting law of God. You cannot shed blood of humanity and be blessed. Only the European tells you a spirituality connected to Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. Only the strong survive. That is the only place in the world where you get a Christian who believes you can kill and murder because they have lied to themselves and said the people I'm murdering are not human because of a scientific theory that is ungodly. So you got two choices. You either acknowledge that Christianity has always been ungodly, always. And the call to come out of her, my people, we're not just telling you like the fake Christians of the Seventh-day Adventist Church to come out. We're telling you we're going to give you back your identity as kings and queens in the everlasting gospel, where you can walk and talk with the Creator as having dominion on earth, just like Enoch did, just like Noah did, leading up to the final judgment of the world. Noah walked with God's instructions and guidance daily and judged the world. This is what we're giving you. The Seventh-day Adventist denomination did not give you that because they're giving you a fake church, and God did not call Paul to join a church. And just because they use terms like elders, Moses was told to assemble the people and call forth the elders by a man who was not a Hebrew or a Christian. Jethro taught Moses how to manage through a system of elders. And in the kingdom, there is 24 elders that minister before the throne of God day and night. And those are the elders that the apostles were called to join. They weren't called to join a Christian church. The elders in heaven already rebuked the Hebrews and the Christians. So you could be a Christian elder if you want. You can be a Hebrew rabbi if you want. But the 24 elders in heaven, when you get to the wedding feast and you don't have on the uniform, remember, the Father does an inspection. And he said, why don't you have on wedding feast clothes? My elders have already been clothed, and Christianity ain't it. The Hebrews ain't it. Even 144,000, it says they're clothed in the white raiment. Their raiment is white, just like the Messiah's raiment was white. He has transfigured. He had walked away from everything. All of their Hebrew Talmud laws. Can't go 100 yards on the Sabbath. He said, y'all don't determine y'all can't define what the Sabbath is. Listen, I created The Sabbath was created for man. I created this vacation for my people to enter into my rest, because the people who I've cursed are vagabonds who are restless wanderers. So to separate my children from vagabonds who can't rest, because I'm devouring them for shedding the blood of my people, I will chase them to the ends of the earth. I am the lion devouring those who have devoured my children. They have no rest. I will not let them rest. So the only way to prove that you are mine is that you can demonstrate that you can enter into my rest. And that proves you're not a vagabond. The Hebrews had made a symbolic, fake Sabbath rest that wasn't the Creator's rest. So no matter how much present day fake people keep the Sabbath, it's not his rest. If you miss anything, if you don't get anything, you need to get the fact that he put enmity between himself and the Hebrews, because he promised Eve that that's what the Messiah was going to come and do. I will put enmity between your seed and the serpent seed. And the Hebrews had become the serpent seed, just like Cain, the seed of Adam and Eve, had become the serpent seed. Typology was fulfilled to the T with the Hebrews, just like Cain foreshadowed it would be. And our people, my father's generation, they missed it. They don't get it. They don't understand. But Jacob didn't get his people into Egypt and be saved. Joseph did. Jacob did not receive the visions that would save his people. Jacob's sons and daughters would have died. Jacob's wife, children would have died without Joseph. And even when God gave Joseph the dream, Jacob rebuked Joseph. So y'all can run around here. And because our ancestors, because even our father's generation didn't teach this to us, okay, you could be like the 11 other brothers of Israel and die in these last days, because they would have died without this information. All of them. Their daddy would have died. They were saved because Joseph, God revealed to Joseph additional revelation that he didn't reveal to his daddy. His daddy was revealed a ladder. I'm not saying that our ancestors did not reveal a revelation. The covenant was revealed to Jacob, and his job was to teach his sons the covenant. Jacob's ladder was the everlasting covenant. Jacob was not shown how to save his people. Israel was not shown how to save his people, because Israel ain't the redeemer of God's people. Israel will not save God's people because Israel ain't everlasting. Salvation cannot come through Israel. Israel had to be grafted into Ham, Cush. Abraham had to be grafted in. Salvation comes through Cush. Salvation comes through Cush. Cush is the land where God made the everlasting promise to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden that he would send the Messiah. Salvation comes through Cush. And that's why they told you that all of Ham's seed, Ham's first son was Cush. It's cursed. So God said, Salvation is going to come through Cush, and then the serpent seed cursed Cush. Now y'all get to choose. And the only reason that they loved the Hebrews is because the Hebrews said, we serve no God but Caesar. That's why all y'all studies have been focused theologically on the Hebrews, because they want you to make the same choice that the Hebrews did, have access to all of the word and still say we serve no God but Caesar at the end and be lost. That is their game plan, and that's what they sticking to. And our ancestors, my father's generation, are allowing it to happen with all of the knowledge of the covenant. But we ain't letting it happen, because we ain't Jacob, we Joseph. We not Jacob, we Joseph. And Joseph sent for his father, sent for his mother, sent for his brothers, even though they had sold him into slavery, even though that the blackamoors, even though that the civil rights movement, even though all of these black sellouts. We sending an invitation out for our brothers and sisters to come home. And only the ones who come home and apologize, who come home and come out of. His brothers could have stayed in those lands, continued in the prostitution, continued in the idolatry and the, listen, it says that they was nothing, the 11 brothers was nothing like Joseph. Nothing. Judah himself openly practiced sleeping with shrine prostitutes. Judah himself. He was so regular with the prostitutes, the shrine, that's Baal worship, yo. Judah was a Baal worshiper. When he wouldn't give his son, his third son, to his daughter-in-law, because he had become pagan, he was believing in pagan superstitions, and 2 of his sons had already died. And he was blaming his daughter-in-law for the death of his sons. His sons was dying because he was a pagan. He was supposed to be worshiping God. But because he was a Baal worshiper, his sons was dying. And because he was a Baal worshiper practicing Babylonian sexual rituals with shrine prostitutes, his daughter-in-law went and sat in front of the temple as a shrine prostitute, and he came and slept with her, and he had a child with her. And then she came back, and when she was pregnant, he went to go judge her like Christianity does. Like Christianity does. You only judge the women when it's proof that she slept with somebody. You never is concerned about the Mary Magdalene, the men that was sleeping with the prostitute. And so the very men who sleep with the prostitute can come out and stone the prostitute. The Hebrews and Christianity are identical, because y'all all serve Caesar. But she was smart enough to take Judah's staff, because she knew how the men of Israel were. Hebrew in name only. Hebrew, Hino. Hebrews in name only. Snakes. He knows. Hebrew in name only snakes. She knew that her father was a Hebrew in name only snake, and she had to protect herself, because the law of God said that by divine Hebraic law, he was supposed to give his youngest son to her, and that child was supposed to have come through her youngest son. Because what does that say? Because the Hebrews had made their women chattel slave, just like the Babylonians, where they found Abraham in Ur of the Chaldeans. They had all of this, the systems, they had all of the rituals and customs of Babylon. Hebrews in name only. Snakes. And God had given them a law. When a son died, the wife is married to the younger brother. Because he blamed the girl, he wasn't going to give her to her. But that meant she had no property, she had no inheritance, she had no money, she had no family. And the only thing that women can do in societies like that is go to the temples of Baal and become shrine prostitutes. He had cursed his daughter-in-law to be the very thing that he visited all the time. And he had sentenced her to death for being pregnant. And it's in the middle of the trial, he brought out his staff and his signet ring. Because he said he ain't had no money to pay for the act. So she said, you got your staff, you got your signet ring? Yeah, he gave it to her. He said he was going to go get the money and bring it back. And then when he tried to go and come back, she was gone. So then when she comes pregnant, knowing that he going to come and try her, she like, yo, this baby is supposed to be mine. It's supposed to be by the younger son. And he wouldn't be faithful. I'm not going to be a prostitute. He going to honor me. Either he going to make me his wife or he going to make me his younger son. He not going to dishonor me. He knows and she knows Christians in name only and Hebrews in name only have no honor. And when she, in the midst of the trial, dropped his staff, his signet ring, and then he like, yo, where you get that from? She like, remember the act with the shrine prostitute? That was me. Why would you da-da-da-da? Because you did not keep the law. You did not honor me. You were supposed to, there go your youngest son right over there, but you blame me for the death of your other sons, and I ain't had nothing to do with it. And you was breaking the law, and you was going to curse me to being a shrine prostitute and dishonor me. And he had to admit and acknowledge, and this is the difference between Judah. This is the same spirit that David had. When he was confronted with his crime, Christianity in the world is being confronted with your crime against divinity. The Hebrews are being confronted. The blackamoors, everybody is being confronted right now. Judah said, you right. I am in violation. David said the same thing when he killed Uriah. The only difference between David and Judah and Saul tried to do the violation and didn't do a fake symbolic gesture of going into the temple and doing the rituals of the temple, all while holding on to that which God told him not to do. That's Christianity. The lifestyles that God has prescribed and cursed, Christianity. And the Christians have been taught by the Romans, who the Hebrews said we serve no God but Caesar. That is already idolatry. You're in violation when you follow the Roman Catholic, the Greco-Roman version of Christianity. And when Saul tried to still hold on to the blood money, the treasure, the garments the cattle. He even spared the king. And God said, kill everything and burn everything. Because if it's defiled, it has no value. And who am I? I can't give you gold? What is the statement that you make about God that you want to get the 30 pieces of silver from them that God can't give you? This is the statement that y'all make. When God say, don't get your money that way. Don't get your money in prostitution. Don't get your money in drug dealing. Don't get your money the fast way. Don't get your money by being false prophets. Don't get your money by being liars. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. Don't get your money by being unfaithful. Get your money by being a faithful servant. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. Now come be ruler over many. Get your money, get your dominion, get your inheritance in one specific way, one way only. Good Samaritan money. Get your money in one way and one way only. The whole world says like Saul, nah, I want to get my money this way, but I want to put a veneer. I want to put rituals that say, yo, I know what you asking me to do, and I want to give you an outward show, but I want to get this money that you have told me is off limits. And God took the kingdom from you. And God takes abundant life from every last one of y'all that live that lie. I don't care who tell it to you. He said, get your money one way only. Well done, my good and faithful servants. One way only. And the European has told you all throughout the word of God, they have changed that word servant to slave. A servant of the king is an heir to the throne. An heir who is next in line to sit on the throne is a servant of the king. It's not a slave. And all King James did was go throughout the word and change the word servant to slave. And then Europeans and pagan Philistine, Egyptian, fallen sons of Cush who love idolatry have gone around the world and justified slavery. What the Philistine has done can never justify slavery. Goliath got his head chopped off. Goliath and his actions towards the world. And then you let the Europeans justify slavery that they got from the Philistines, and they've justified it in the word of God. And the word of God has never justified slavery. God has authorized the training of faithful servitude to prepare his heirs to rule. He makes his heirs co-regents, and then he has them serve the kingdom as a servant of the kingdom faithfully. And then when they complete the tasks and assignments given them as co-regents, then the father does a rites of heritage, not a rites of passage. A customs of heritage. Transfer. It's called the coronation. The coronation is the transfer of the customs, saying that the child has faithfully served out the customs and the heritage, and the father transfers his will of rulership to the heir for the faithful service of the kingdom. Servitude is not slavery. Servitude is how heirs prove that they're worthy to rule. You serve in order to rule. If you do not serve, you can never rule. If you do not serve, you will be a slave. Working is not servitude. Teaching and preaching is not servitude. T.D. Jakes preaches all day. Kanye West is preaching right now. Preaching is not servitude. Kanye is preaching in a anti-Jesus Christ name right now. That is not faithful servitude. That is slavery. Just one last note. The colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. What problem are they having in the 1700s? The slaves are getting away. To us, John Horse, in the same place where I'm sitting at right now, they are escaping. And they put in a cruel system in Virginia in 1717, and they put in a law on the books called meritorious manumission. The Willie Lynch theory taught them how to break them and put fear in them, and then they put laws on the books called meritorious manumission, meaning they put spies on the plantation. They hired the Judases. They spread the 30 pieces of silver. And your people of color became your greatest enemy. They trained your people. This is where your civil rights leaders were created at. This is where your Black Panther Party leaders, this is where your Black Lives Matter. Listen, this document is the beginning of Black Lives Matter. This document is the beginning of Huey P. Newton. This document is the beginning. Nat Turner. Every last one of the movements that y'all know about came out of this document, because there was already a solution to our people. Our people were already getting free. This document proves that there were people of color in the United States before Plymouth Rock and Columbus and all of them who controlled the land. And because they didn't have a unified system yet, the slaves were running from the plantation and getting to John Horse, who freed the Black Seminoles. The Seminoles were able, Native Indians who were offspring of Europeans who landed here and were doing missionary work. Catholics were doing missionary work in the USA in the 1400s, and they won't document that. That is another proof that they're lying. This is also another proof that the true individuals who they were coming to convert to Catholicism did not believe like the Europeans did, were not under none of the kingdoms of the Europeans, and they weren't Native Americans. 1400s. Missionary outposts Catholic missionary outposts are documented as being here in the United States of America on missionary outreach for the Roman Catholic Church. So why would they tell you Christopher Columbus came first if the Roman Catholic Church came here? Why? Because in 1500s, the whole world knew that the Roman Catholic was the beast entity. In 1798, the Roman Catholic Church received a deadly wound because of that. So do they want to promote that they were here and then they lost? No, because then they would have to admit what happens when the Roman Catholic Church really established the lands that Spain and all of them are claiming. When the Roman Catholic Church died in 1798, all of the treaties that they wrote died with it. All of the treaties that the colonies, the 13 colonies, put in place to start corporations called states. 1798. Every corporation attached to the treaty of the Roman Catholic Church died. Huh? All of those colonies, they incorporated their states. That incorporation is a treaty with Rome. All of those treaties died in 1798. Europe has no claim to the United States of America. And the only way they can do anything to you is if you claim that you are a slave called a U.S. citizen. We give you an opportunity to tell the world and them. We're giving you an opportunity to come into our family bubble, to compete on the world stage for our family. This is how we present to the world in the Holywood Grail Games every year at this time of year during Labor Day. We take our children at Pond Forge Academy and we celebrate the fact that our idle mind is a devil's workshop. We celebrate the fact that he commanded us to be, you have dominion. Holywood Grails is about proving that we have dominion. Physically. We'll take on the world and prove that we are still those same children. You do not have to identify with slavery where they dishonor you as a European and they tell you, yo, you got to fight for rights and fight for, listen, they can't give you rights because they have violated God's covenant. They have nothing to give you. This is why you can't get anything in Black Lives Matter. This is why you can't get anything in the Civil Rights Movement. This is why you can't get anything in the Women's Liberation Movement. This is why you can't get anything in their fake gender equality movement. They don't define gender, so they can't define that or regulate equality. This is an opportunity for y'all to join our children and our ancestors. We've been doing this, I told you, 75 years. This is how you demonstrate to the world that you are the original people through dominion. You have dominion. Be fruitful and multiply. The Europeans push depopulation. The Europeans push climate change. Listen, there is no climate change without people shedding the blood. Yes, there's climate change because the Europeans are killing people. The Europeans had killed people for 500 years. This is why. It says all of nature groans. When you go back to living a life of honor and faithful servitude, nature automatically, because it's not devolution, we're not devolving. Europeans are. They build Rome, it devolves and crashes. They build Greece, it devolves and crashes. They build Germany, it devolves and crashes. They build Italy, it devolves and crashes. We are not Europeans. We don't devolve. And there's no such thing as evolution. We are the Creator's children. We procreate, we recreate, and we replenish the earth and subdue it. Replenishment means we make it brand new. We restore it. We rehabilitate it. We do reparations. This is how you prove that. You let the whole world with their philosophies come out, put their best champions. The Philistines had the same philosophy that the Europeans had, and they put their best champion, Goliath, out. This is always how the Creator has done it. When the world wants to challenge who his children are, the Hebrews want to come on the scene and claim that they're the chosen. And every time they do that, he lets another kingdom come and enslave them clowns for claiming a title without being able to prove the dominion. Anybody who want to claim Hebrew Israelites are the chosen people, anybody want to claim that the people of in the unholy land are the chosen people, we challenge you to step up and produce fruit. That's all. Y'all can't participate in our games because we already demonstrate that y'all can't deal with us physically. We simply challenge you to produce fruit. Don't migrate to the United States of America. Produce fruit. Don't come and invest in, listen, produce. We not Africa. We not Africa. We not scared. See, in Africa, they crashed Zimbabwe to make all of the other African nations think that if Europeans pull out, but they never pulled out of Zimbabwe. We're going to show the world that when you evict the European, fruitfulness happens. Dominion happens. When you put and the number one threat in the European is the Philistine blackamoor of today. They've disguised themselves. Black Lives Matter and Antifa is the most current representation of, just like the Hebrews at the cross said, we serve no God but Caesar. Black Lives Matter and Antifa and your civil rights movement and your congressmen and your politicians and African American and Black and European serve Caesar to your detriment, because that's not who you are. You ain't Black. You ain't African American. You are a son and daughter of God. And they know that. And they could be that, but they have chosen to be Philistine. They could come out of Philistine. They could come out of Rome. But they choose Rome and the Philistines over. And they want to challenge for dominion. So they're going to get the response that the sons and daughters of God give. This is higher than Hebrews, and we're going to prove it. This is higher than Aryans, and we can prove it. These games are to prove it. They can't stop it. They can't do nothing about it. And then the fruit that we're going to produce in the lives of those who come out of those things. Any African American born here, 4 generations of ancestors. This is who I'm talking to. You got 4 generations of people who was born here in the United States of America. Your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and your great-great-grandmother are American descendants, and you people of color. This is who I'm talking to exclusively. Everybody else got to watch. Everybody else got to watch. Why? Because y'all all come in here and y'all letting the Europeans tell you that, yo, they created a caste system statistically. They always state that the European, statistically, if it's finances, they're going to have the European, or if they do negative statistics. The unemployment rate for Europeans is this. Then there's Asians. Asians include Indians. Then there's Asians. So you talk about the Indians and the Asians. Then there's the brown. Then there's you, the slaves. It's the same caste system that they put in India. The royals, the priest, the Buddhist priest, the working artisans, the middle class, all of the money is the top 3% is in the royals and the priest. The slave master are the working artisans. These are the slave masters. These are the plantation owners in the caste system. And they whole dream and desire is to be a royal. And they can't become a royal unless they go through the priest, and they have to be faithful idol worshipers for the royals to acknowledge them and let them come into their secret clubs. So they got to sacrifice the people on the bottom that they call the untouchables. They created the same caste system, but they do it statistically. They call it class here in the United States of America. Middle class, it's the same caste system. And they got certain families that they call royals, the Bushes, the Trumps, the Obamas. Then they use the Protestant and the Catholic Church and this ecumenical movement, the priests, Baal worshipers. Then the corporations are people too. The right-wing Republicans do everything through corporations because they don't have to be taxed. This is how they separate themselves from the untouchable people on the bottom. They enslave you. They get the tax cuts and the tax breaks to be the slave owners, the taskmasters. And then you have to work for the taskmasters. And then they've categorized their own groups of people, the Europeans, who don't have the know of how to incorporate and be in their brotherhoods and aren't in a evangelical or Protestant or their pagan dedication to Apollo, which is the Statue of Liberty, which is the Olympic Games dedication. You're not in one of those secret brotherhoods, and you're not in a corporate secret brotherhood, they financial brotherhoods, and you're not born into their royal families, the Kennedys, the Bushes, the Trumps. Then you chattel, you chattel, and we're gonna break the chattel up because the real power is in the untouchables who really own the land. So everybody else who is immigrants and everybody else who don't have a covenant, they all get stacked on top. the anti-USA. You all get stacked on top with the statistics. The Asians, the Latinos, because you all are encouraged to come in and extract and send back. And then our brothers and our sisters that's in the trenches with us, who are pro-USA, you grouped into the untouchable group. You don't get the advancement of those who come over and got the sweetheart deals and get the subsidies and the handouts. This is the system that they got in place. So all of our people in the untouchable categories, these games are for you to show the world your dominion and make the European prove they lie. And they can't do it, I promise you.